The auditorium was buzzing with excitement, filled with children, parents, and teachers who had gathered for the school talent show. The bright lights reflected off the shiny wooden floor, and the faint smell of fresh paint mixed with the scent of popcorn from the small stand near the entrance. Among the performers waiting backstage, a small 7-year-old sat quietly on a folding chair, their feet barely touching the ground. The child held a tiny notebook with scribbled notes and sketches of piano keys, their little hands trembling slightly. They had been practicing for weeks, but the nervousness felt heavier now, knowing all eyes would soon be on them. Around the child, other kids chatted excitedly, showing off juggling skills, magic tricks, and dance routines. Some of them were loud and confident, laughing and teasing one another. But the 7-year-old stayed silent, watching carefully, listening to the echoes of footsteps on the stage, imagining what it would feel like to sit in the piano bench and play. Their heart beat fast, a mixture of fear and anticipation. Backstage, a teacher walked past, her voice calm but firm. "Remember, it's just for fun. Don't worry about anyone else. Focus on your music." The child nodded, holding the edge of the notebook tightly. Music had always been a safe place, a world where they could hide from the noise and chaos of the outside. Piano keys had always understood them when words failed. But today felt different. Today, they were not alone in the quiet of their room. Today, the entire school would watch. A few moments later, the announcer called the next performer. "Next up, we have a very special participant, only 7 years old, who will be playing a piano piece for us. Let's give them a big round of applause." The small child swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every eye turning toward the stage. Parents leaned forward in their seats, cameras ready, while other kids whispered and nudged each other, some clearly skeptical. The child's fingers fidgeted with the hem of their shirt, and they took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of nervous energy inside. The path to the stage felt longer than it really was. Every step made the heart pound harder. The bright lights made the audience fade into shadows, and all the noise became a muffled hum. The child could barely see the faces clearly, but could feel the gaze of dozens of people upon them. When they reached the piano, they paused for a moment, staring at the shiny black and white keys. The bench looked too big, the instrument seemed too large, and for a second the nerves made the fingers freeze. From the audience came a murmur, soft at first, then louder. Some whispered, "They're just a kid. How can they play something serious?" A few older students giggled, making exaggerated faces, clearly thinking the small child would fumble. The 7-year-old's stomach nodded, but they reminded themselves of the countless hours spent practicing in their room, of the songs played over and over, until each note felt like it belonged to their fingertips. The child closed their eyes for a brief second and imagined the room as their practice space, the piano waiting patiently as always. They lifted their small hands above the keys, ready to press the first note. A hush fell over the audience as if they knew something important was about to happen. Even the teachers seemed tense, leaning forward, unsure what to expect. Then, from somewhere in the back, a voice shouted, "Get off the stage!" A few others joined in, laughing and pointing, mocking the child's size and age. The words stung, sharp and unexpected. The small child's hands trembled, and for a moment, the mind went blank. But then something inside flickered, a quiet determination. The piano had never asked for applause, it had never demanded respect, but it had always been there, waiting. Ignoring the shouting, the child lowered their hands to the keys. The first note sounded, soft and clear, filling the room with a delicate tone. Some people in the audience frowned, expecting mistakes, but the child played another note, then another, slowly forming the melody they had practiced countless times. Each sound was careful, measured, and honest. The music began to grow, a gentle wave washing over the whispers and laughter, softening the harshness. A teacher leaned closer to whisper words of encouragement. "That's it. Just play like you always do." The small child nodded slightly, feeling the fear ebb just enough to focus. The notes flowed more confidently now, the melody rising and falling like the gentle sway of a calm river. The audience started to notice. Eyes widened, some jaws dropped. The whispers began to fade as the sound of music filled every corner of the room. Behind the scenes, parents held their breath. They had always known the child was talented, but seeing it in front of a live audience was different. Pride mixed with astonishment, and a few wiped tears from their eyes. Other children stopped their giggling, some leaning forward, curiosity overtaking mockery. It was becoming clear that this small 7-year-old was creating something special, something that could not be ignored. The child's fingers danced over the keys with growing confidence. The music was no longer just a series of notes. It was a story, a language that spoke directly to everyone who listened. Each chord carried emotion. Each pause held meaning. The initial shouts of "Get off the stage" seemed to disappear, replaced by a tense silence as the audience realized the skill before them. The child had found a way to turn fear into focus, nerves into strength, and doubts into wonder. In that moment, the stage felt like home. The lights, the audience, even the harsh words became part of the performance, shadows and echoes that made the music stronger. The 7-year-old played not to impress or compete, but to express, to share a piece of themselves that words could never convey. And slowly, very slowly, the energy in the room shifted. The mocking smiles faded, replaced by surprise, curiosity, and quiet admiration. The first few minutes passed like a heartbeat. Each note carried more confidence, more grace. People began to sit straighter, listening intently. Even the older kids who had laughed before now whispered among themselves, unsure of what to say. Some teachers exchanged glances, nodding in quiet approval, feeling the magic of this young performer's courage. Backstage, the child's parents leaned against the wall, holding their breath, hearts swelling with a mix of pride and relief. They remembered the long hours of practice, the small victories at home, and the quiet moments when their child had refused to give up despite being too small, too young, or too shy. Seeing the performance now, they realized that every struggle had been worth it. As the final notes approached, the child felt a warmth spreading through their chest. The audience had stopped judging, stopped doubting, and simply listened. The piano responded to every feeling, every emotion, and the room seemed to hold its breath along with them. The last note lingered in the air, a soft echo that left everyone still for a heartbeat before reality returned. And then, slowly, softly at first, came the applause. A few hesitant claps turned into a cascade of cheers and whistles. The small 7-year-old blinked, astonished at the reaction, their tiny hands still hovering above the keys. A smile spread across their face, shy and genuine. They had faced the stage, faced the shouting, faced the doubt, and now had touched something deep within everyone present. For that moment, the music was more than notes. It was a triumph, a quiet victory, a story told without words. The applause from the audience still echoed in the auditorium, but the 7-year-old hardly noticed it. Their focus was entirely on the piano, on the way the keys felt beneath their fingers. Every note played seemed to create a ripple in the room, and the nervousness that had once consumed them was slowly transforming into a quiet confidence. They had faced the laughter, the shouting, the disbelief, and now, for the first time, they felt a small spark of courage. Some people in the crowd leaned forward, their eyes wide, mouths slightly open, as if they could not believe what they were hearing. The music was no longer a simple tune. It carried a depth that made people pause. Parents whispered to one another, amazed at how someone so small could produce such emotion through the piano. Even some of the older kids who had mocked the child before were silent, their teasing faces replaced with curiosity and awe. Backstage, the small child's hands moved with more fluidity now. They had forgotten the size of the audience, the harsh words, and the flashing lights. All that mattered was the music and the connection it was making. Every note had a story, a feeling that poured out naturally. The auditorium was quiet, as if everyone had been drawn into the world created by a tiny performer who had the heart of a master musician. A teacher in the front row whispered softly to another, "I've never seen anything like this from someone so young. Just listen to how expressive they are." The words barely reached the child, but they felt the energy in the room shift. The audience was now paying attention to every subtle movement, every delicate touch on the piano keys. The small hands seemed to float above the instrument, and the sound that came out was nothing short of magical. Some children in the back had initially rolled their eyes, but even they could not deny the beauty of the performance. A few leaned forward, trying to understand how such a young child could command so much attention. The melody carried an innocence and maturity at the same time, a mix that made the audience hold their breath. It was hard to believe that someone so small could fill an entire auditorium with music that touched hearts so deeply. The 7-year-old's eyes occasionally flickered toward the audience, noticing the surprised expressions, the wide eyes, and the smiles forming. It was a new experience, one that mixed nervousness with excitement. The child had never played in front of so many people before, and the realization that they were truly captivating everyone was both thrilling and a little scary. But the music was a bridge, connecting their heart to everyone present, turning fear into courage. In the audience, whispers of admiration spread quietly. "They're amazing," someone said. "I can't believe they are only 7, another whispered. The applause that had erupted before had calmed into a respectful silence, with occasional soft claps between phrases. People were holding their breath, waiting to see what would come next. The music was pulling them in, making them forget about age, size, or expectations. All that mattered was the sound, the story told through every key pressed. The child's confidence grew with each note. What had started as a nervous, shaky beginning had transformed into a performance that seemed effortless. The fingers moved with precision, yet the emotions were raw and genuine. Each chord resonated, echoing in the walls of the auditorium, wrapping around the listeners. Even the harsh words that had greeted the child at the start seemed to vanish, drowned out by the beauty of the melody. Parents leaned forward, some with tears brimming in their eyes. They remembered the countless afternoons spent encouraging the child, helping them practice, and watching them grow. Every missed note, every frustrated sigh, every moment of doubt had led to this. And now, the performance was more than just music. It was a testament to dedication, courage, and the magic of talent nurtured with love and patience. A few skeptical teachers who had expected mistakes were now nodding slowly, impressed beyond words. Their eyes followed the small hands, noting the way the child seemed to anticipate each note with an understanding that far exceeded their years. It was not just technical skill. It was emotion, timing, and a sense of rhythm that could move people to feel something deep inside. The performance was proving that talent could bloom in the most unexpected ways. The older students who had laughed earlier were now sitting silently, their mouths slightly open in surprise. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing they had underestimated the small performer. The room was filled with a kind of energy that was both electric and tender. The 7-year-old's music had created a bond between everyone present, a shared experience that transcended age and expectation. As the melody continued, the child's heart raced, not with fear, but with excitement. Each note was a small victory, each phrase a step forward. The music was no longer just something practiced in secret. It was a message, a declaration that even the youngest and smallest could leave a mark, could move people in ways words could not. The audience felt it, and the child felt it too. The connection was real, powerful, and unforgettable. The performance began to build, the gentle notes growing into a richer, more complex sequence. The child had reached a level of comfort that allowed them to express every emotion hidden within the music. The audience was entranced, many leaning forward, eyes fixed on the small hands that seemed to hold a universe of sound. The shy 7-year-old had transformed into a confident performer, guiding everyone through a journey of melody and emotion. From the back of the auditorium, the parents whispered encouragement, their hearts swelling with pride. They had believed in the child's talent from the beginning, but seeing it unfold in front of so many people was something entirely different. Every note played reinforced the idea that age was no barrier to greatness, that courage and passion could shine even in the face of doubt and mockery. Even the harsh voices that had tried to intimidate the child were now quiet. The music was undeniable, overpowering their skepticism. The small performer's dedication and heart had won over everyone in the room. Some audience members wiped tears from their eyes, unable to contain their emotions. The 7-year-old had not only faced the challenge of performing in front of a large crowd, but had also captured their hearts in a way that few could imagine. The final minutes of the performance drew near. The music became more expressive, the small hands moving with confidence and grace. The auditorium was completely silent, save for the sound of the piano filling the space. Every note was deliberate, every pause meaningful. The audience could feel the story being told, the emotions flowing, the courage and talent of a child who refused to be diminished by age or size. As the last notes lingered in the air, the audience sat in stunned silence. For a moment, nobody moved, nobody spoke, as if afraid to disturb the magic that had just unfolded. The small 7-year-old sat at the piano, breathing steadily, eyes shining with a mixture of relief and pride. They had done it. They had faced the crowd, faced the laughter and doubt, and had emerged victorious through their music. Then, as if on cue, the applause began. At first, soft and hesitant, but quickly growing into a roar of appreciation. People stood, clapping and cheering, some with tears in their eyes, others whistling and shouting words of praise. The small child looked around, overwhelmed but smiling, realizing that their courage, patience, and love for music had created a moment that would be remembered by everyone present. In that moment, the auditorium was more than just a place with lights and seats. It was a space of transformation, where a tiny 7-year-old had shown the world that talent, heart, and determination could triumph over fear and doubt. The music had spoken louder than any shout, louder than any mockery, and the child had discovered something even more powerful than applause, the confidence to believe in themselves. The applause was fading, but the small 7-year-old at the piano had not lost a single ounce of focus. Their heart still raced, but it was no longer from fear. It was from a growing excitement, a thrill of performing that no amount of nerves could suppress. Every note played felt like a conversation between the child and the audience, and slowly, the whispers of doubt were replaced by awe. As the melody continued, a subtle shift began in the auditorium. Parents leaned closer to their seats, unable to stop themselves from watching every tiny movement of the child's hands. Some of them quietly whispered words of encouragement, but the music itself had become the voice, speaking louder than anything else. Each chord told a story, each gentle pause added weight, capturing the attention of every single person in the room. A group of older children in the back had initially scoffed, exchanging jokes and glances meant to belittle the performer. But now their laughter was gone. They were leaning forward, eyes wide, trying to understand how someone so small could command such a presence. Their previous mockery had no place here. The music demanded respect and focus. It was as if the piano and the performer had created an invisible barrier, shielding them from negativity, turning skeptics into witnesses of something extraordinary. The child's hands moved with increasing confidence. What had started as careful, tentative notes had transformed into a seamless flow of sound. The melody rose and fell like waves on a calm ocean, sometimes soft and delicate, other times powerful and commanding. The small 7-year-old was no longer just playing. They were expressing every thought and feeling they had stored within themselves, and the audience could feel it. Some parents wiped tears from their eyes. They could see the countless hours of practice, the patience, the dedication, and now it was all visible on stage. The small child had taken a risk by performing in front of such a crowd, and now they were being rewarded with the awe of everyone around them. The music carried honesty and purity, untouched by pretension, resonating with every listener's heart. A teacher leaned forward, whispering to another, "It's incredible. At this age, I've never seen anyone play with such emotion." The words were true. The performance was rare and mesmerizing. The child's hands flew over the keys with a combination of precision and emotion that seemed beyond their years. Each note had purpose, each pause meaning. The audience was captivated, caught in the delicate spell of music that transcended age, expectation, and skepticism. Even the students who had been laughing and shouting before were silent now. They couldn't help it. The performance was too powerful, too pure. It was impossible to ignore. Some of them shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing how wrong they had been. The child had turned fear into courage and doubt into beauty. Every movement of their small hands communicated confidence and focus, leaving no room for mockery or disrespect. The child felt the energy of the room without looking up. They could hear the subtle changes in breathing, the quiet fascination of the audience, and the soft exhalations of those moved by the music. It was a delicate balance of nerves and control, but the young performer had learned to channel their emotions into the melody, letting the piano do the talking. Each chord struck resonated like a heartbeat, connecting them to everyone in the room. The melody began to grow more intricate. The child's fingers moved faster, more fluidly, dancing over the keys in a display of talent that seemed impossible for someone so young. The audience was spellbound. No one dared interrupt, no one dared mock. All they could do was listen, captivated by the story being told note by note. It was not just a performance. It was a revelation. A few parents exchanged glances, disbelief written clearly on their faces. They had seen recitals and concerts before, but nothing like this. The child's ability to remain calm, focused, and expressive at such a young age was extraordinary. They felt pride mixed with awe, realizing that this performance would be remembered long after the applause faded. In the back, the older children had stopped whispering entirely. They were leaning forward, eyes fixed on the small hands moving over the keys, mouths slightly open in silent admiration. Even their earlier teasing had vanished, replaced by a genuine appreciation for the skill, dedication, and courage displayed before them. The music had silenced them, teaching a quiet lesson that talent knows no age, and that courage can shine in even the smallest person. The 7-year-old's breathing was steady now, their movements confident and natural. The nervousness had melted away, replaced by a sense of purpose and connection. Each note was a brushstroke, painting a picture in the minds of those listening. The room was completely immersed in the sound, the audience holding their collective breath, hanging on every phrase, every gentle press of the keys. The child occasionally glanced up, noticing the expressions on the faces around them. Surprise, admiration, even tears. It was all there. The small performer realized that the music had become a bridge between themselves and everyone in the room, a way to communicate feelings that words could never capture. They smiled slightly, feeling a warmth in their chest, a sense of achievement that surpassed any fear they had felt earlier. The melody now reached its most intricate part, with delicate runs and strong chords weaving together. The audience was fully captivated, leaning forward, eyes glued to the small figure at the piano. Some parents were whispering, "Incredible." Others simply sat in awe. The child's music had transformed the auditorium into a space where nothing else existed but the connection between performer and listener. The small hands moved gracefully, fingers stretching to reach keys, thumbs striking notes with precision, creating a sound that was both delicate and powerful. The music rose and fell like waves, carrying emotion and storytelling without a single word. The audience was completely entranced, caught in the magic of a 7-year-old who had discovered how to turn fear into beauty. The teacher in the front row nodded subtly, impressed at the child's ability to maintain focus while navigating such a complex piece. It was not just skill. It was confidence, emotion, and heart combined. The child was speaking through the piano, telling a story that everyone in the room could understand and feel, even without words. As the melody continued, the performance began to reach its peak. The 7-year-old's small frame seemed to vanish behind the power and emotion of the music. Every note was deliberate, every pause filled with meaning. The audience could feel the dedication, the practice, and the courage it had taken to reach this moment. They could see the transformation happening before their eyes. A shy, nervous child had become a commanding presence through the power of music. Parents and teachers alike felt their hearts swell with pride and amazement. The performance was a reminder of what could be achieved with patience, dedication, and courage. The The child had faced the fear of performing in front of a large crowd, had faced ridicule and doubt, and had emerged not just successful, but inspirational. The audience was learning a quiet lesson. Talent, bravery, and heart could create magic, no matter the age. The final section of the piece approached, and the child's fingers moved with even greater confidence, almost effortlessly. The melody soared, carrying the emotions of fear, determination, courage, and triumph. Every note was a statement, every phrase a testament to the power of perseverance. The audience could feel the story concluding, the energy reaching its climax, and they waited, completely silent, for the final note. And when it came, soft and resonant, it filled the room with a sense of completion. The 7-year-old paused, hands hovering briefly over the keys, then slowly lowered them. The room was still for a heartbeat, as if everyone was collectively holding their breath, savoring the moment. The music had left a mark, a memory that would stay with everyone present. Then, the applause erupted, at first soft, then swelling into cheers and clapping, filling the auditorium with an energy that matched the excitement of the performance. The small child looked around, eyes wide with amazement, realizing that they had not only played the piano but had captivated the hearts of everyone in the room. Their courage and talent had turned a moment of fear into a story of triumph, leaving the audience inspired and deeply moved. The applause after the previous section of the performance had filled the auditorium, yet the 7-year-old remained calm, hands poised over the piano keys, ready to continue. There was a quiet confidence now, one born of focus and courage. The initial fear, the nervous tremors that had accompanied the child to the stage, had transformed into determination. Each key pressed now carried intention. Each chord resonated with feeling, creating a connection with the audience that went beyond words. The music shifted slightly, moving from gentle, flowing notes to a more expressive, layered melody. The child's fingers moved deftly, navigating patterns and harmonies that seemed far beyond their age. Parents leaned forward in their seats, trying not to miss a single movement, while the teachers in the front row exchanged glances, impressed by the sophistication of the performance. The child had taken control of the room, not through loudness or bravado, but through the quiet power of music. The audience had grown silent, captivated by the story unfolding through each note. Even the older children who had once whispered and laughed now sat, spellbound, realizing the depth of talent displayed before them. The child had drawn everyone into a world where only music existed, where fear and doubt no longer mattered. Each chord struck a nerve. Each melody line painted a vivid picture that words could never capture. Backstage, parents held their breath, a mixture of pride and awe washing over them. They had always known the child was talented, but seeing it in front of a full audience was something entirely different. The music spoke of dedication, of countless hours spent practicing in quiet rooms, of resilience in the face of discouragement. And now, that hard work was visible to all, manifesting in the precise and emotional touch of the small hands on the piano. The 7-year-old moved seamlessly through the piece, from gentle passages to moments of intensity. The melody rose and fell, creating waves that swept through the auditorium, carrying emotion and imagination with them. People were drawn into the ebb and flow, unable to resist the pull of the music. The child's performance was no longer just a recital. It was an experience, a journey, a story told through sound alone. A teacher in the front whispered, almost in disbelief, "I can't believe they're only 7. Listen to the control, the expression. It's extraordinary." The words were soft, but they mirrored the thoughts of everyone listening. There was no doubt that the child's talent was exceptional, that something rare and beautiful was unfolding on that stage. The audience was witnessing more than skill. They were seeing the courage to stand tall despite fear, to turn doubt into a mesmerizing performance. The small child occasionally glanced at the audience, catching glimpses of wide eyes, some brimming with tears, others filled with wonder. The energy in the room was shifting, from skepticism to admiration. Each note played was a testament to the child's persistence, a statement that even the youngest could achieve greatness when passion and dedication were present. The music had become a bridge, connecting the performer to everyone, evoking emotions that were both personal and universal. As the piece continued, the 7-year-old navigated complex passages with ease, fingers dancing over the keys with confidence and grace. The melody was intricate yet approachable, full of expression yet precise. The audience could sense the emotion behind every note, the mixture of nerves, joy, pride, and love for music that had driven the child to this moment. It was impossible not to feel the story being told, even without a single word spoken. Parents whispered among themselves, marveling at the performance. "They're incredible," one said softly. "I've never seen such control in someone so young," another added. Teachers nodded, some quietly shaking their heads in amazement. Even the older students, who had been the most skeptical, were now completely absorbed, unable to take their eyes off the small performer. The child had captured not just their attention but their hearts. The 7-year-old's confidence was growing with each passing measure. Where fear had once dominated, a sense of calm determination had taken over. The music flowed naturally now, the notes blending seamlessly into a melody that was both delicate and powerful. Each phrase carried meaning, each pause was intentional, drawing the audience further into the story being told. It was a performance that demanded attention, respect, and admiration. The auditorium seemed to hold its collective breath as the child moved through the most challenging sections of the piece. Fingers stretched across the keys, striking precise notes with confidence, weaving a tapestry of sound that was both complex and beautiful. The audience was completely captivated, sensing the depth of talent and the dedication required to reach this level of mastery at such a young age. Every gesture, every note, spoke of determination and heart. A soft smile appeared on the child's face as they played, a quiet acknowledgement of the connection being formed between them and the listeners. The music had become a language, one that everyone could understand, one that transcended age, size, and expectation. It was not about showing off or competing. It was about expressing the emotions that words could not convey. And the audience felt it deeply, as if they were experiencing the story firsthand. The melody began to rise, building to a gentle climax. The small hands moved with grace and precision, the music flowing effortlessly. The audience was drawn into the crescendo, experiencing the intensity of the emotion with every chord. Parents clasped their hands together, some whispering words of encouragement, while teachers sat in quiet amazement, witnessing the transformative power of music performed with sincerity and heart. Older students who had doubted the child's abilities now watched in silence, their previous laughter replaced by awe. The child's performance was a lesson in humility and respect, showing that talent and courage could come in any size, at any age. The music commanded attention, breaking down barriers and creating a shared experience that united everyone in the room. It was a moment of magic, a display of the power of perseverance and passion. The 7-year-old continued, fingers moving fluidly, striking chords with precision and feeling. The melody shifted seamlessly between gentle passages and more intense moments, creating a dynamic and emotionally rich performance. The audience was fully immersed, unable to look away, feeling every nuance of the music as if it were being played directly in their hearts. The child had become more than a performer. They had become a storyteller, using the piano as their voice. As the final moments approached, the child's hands moved with increasing confidence and expression. The music soared, carrying the emotions of the piece to a peak that left the audience breathless. Every note was deliberate, every pause meaningful. The audience could sense the dedication, the countless hours of practice, and the bravery it had taken for a small 7-year-old to stand on that stage and share their gift with the world. Then, as the last note lingered in the air, the auditorium was silent for a heartbeat, as if everyone collectively held their breath, savoring the final sound. The small child looked around, eyes shining with pride and amazement at the reaction of the audience. They had faced fear, doubt, and ridicule, and had emerged victorious through the power of their music. The audience erupted into applause, clapping and cheering, some standing, others whistling, all celebrating the courage, talent, and heart of a child who had given their all. The 7-year-old smiled shyly, overwhelmed by the response, realizing that they had not only played the piano but had touched the hearts of everyone present. The performance had transformed the auditorium into a place of wonder, a space where age, size, and doubt no longer mattered. It was a moment of triumph, a celebration of courage, dedication, and the extraordinary talent of a small child who had dared to share their gift with the world. The applause that had erupted after the last section of the performance continued, filling the auditorium with a warm, appreciative energy. The small 7-year-old at the piano felt a surge of pride and excitement, but also a calm determination. They had already conquered their nerves once, and now the focus was on continuing to share their music, letting the melody speak for itself. Every note played was deliberate, each chord a brushstroke painting the emotions they wanted the audience to feel. The audience had settled into a quiet reverence, completely absorbed in the child's performance. Parents and teachers alike watched with wide eyes, amazed at the young performer's skill and composure. The older students, who had been skeptical and mocking at the beginning, were now silent, leaning forward with expressions of awe. The child's music had transformed the energy in the room, replacing doubt and laughter with respect and admiration. The 7-year-old's fingers moved swiftly over the keys, navigating the melody with grace and precision. The music was alive, full of emotion and depth that belied the child's age. Each phrase told a story, each pause invited reflection. The audience felt connected, drawn into the world created by the small performer. It was not just a recital. It was an experience that touched hearts and minds alike. Backstage, parents held their breath, their hands clasped together in silent support. They had seen the child practice countless times, and each session had been a labor of patience and dedication. Watching the performance now, they realized that all the hours spent encouraging, guiding, and nurturing their child had led to this extraordinary moment. The pride they felt was overwhelming, mixed with awe at the talent displayed so effortlessly on stage. The music shifted slightly, moving into a more expressive section. The child's small hands moved with confidence and fluidity, striking notes that rang with clarity and emotion. The audience could sense the passion and dedication behind each chord. It was impossible not to be moved by the sincerity of the performance. The child had created a bridge between themselves and everyone listening, a silent conversation carried entirely by the music. Some parents whispered quietly to one another, marveling at the young performer's skill. "They're incredible," one said softly. "I've never seen someone so young play with such emotion," another replied. Teachers nodded in agreement, impressed not only by the technical ability but also by the emotional depth. The 7-year-old had transformed fear and nervousness into a performance that was both captivating and inspiring. The older students in the back, who had doubted the child at first, were now completely engaged. They watched every movement of the small hands over the piano keys, unable to look away. The child's music had silenced them, replacing their mockery with admiration. It was a lesson in humility and respect, showing that courage and talent could shine in even the smallest package. The melody continued, growing richer and more complex. The child's fingers moved with precision and confidence, each note contributing to the story being told. The audience was completely absorbed, caught in the flow of the music, feeling the emotions the child was expressing. Parents and teachers exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the extraordinary talent they were witnessing. It was a performance that would be remembered for a long time. The child's confidence had grown steadily throughout the performance. The fear and hesitation that had been present at the beginning were gone, replaced by a calm focus. Each note was played with intention, each phrase shaped with care. The music had become a part of the performer, a natural expression of their heart and mind. The audience could feel this connection, and it made the experience even more powerful. As the piece progressed, the child moved into the most intricate passages. Fingers danced across the keys, striking notes with accuracy and emotion. The audience was spellbound, captivated by the combination of skill, expression, and courage. The music told a story that words could never convey, and everyone present felt a part of it. It was a moment of magic, created by a child who had faced fear and doubt with bravery. Parents leaned forward, some wiping away tears, others holding their hands to their hearts. They had supported their child through long hours of practice, witnessing determination and persistence in every session. Seeing it all come together on stage was overwhelming. The child's performance was a reminder of the power of hard work, dedication, and belief in oneself. It was a moment that inspired everyone in the room. Teachers in the front row nodded quietly, impressed by the skill and emotional depth of the performance. They had seen many talented students over the years, but few had demonstrated the combination of technical ability, focus, and heart that this 7-year-old had shown. The child's music had created a connection with the audience, a silent dialogue that transcended age and expectation. It was a lesson in courage, perseverance, and the beauty of genuine expression. The older students, who had mocked the child earlier, were now completely silent, watching in awe. The performance had captured their attention, their respect, and even their admiration. The child's talent and courage had transformed the energy in the room, silencing negativity and replacing it with appreciation. It was a powerful reminder that true ability and determination could not be ignored. The 7-year-old's music continued to flow, each note precise and expressive. The melody rose and fell, guiding the audience through a journey of emotion and imagination. The child's small hands seemed to command the piano effortlessly, creating a sound that was both delicate and powerful. The audience was completely immersed, experiencing the story being told through every phrase, every chord, every subtle nuance. The child occasionally glanced at the audience, noticing the wide eyes, the smiles, and the tears. The energy in the room was palpable, a shared experience that connected everyone present. The music had become a language, one that transcended words and conveyed feelings in their purest form. The audience could sense the child's courage, the hours of practice, and the love for music that had brought them to this moment. As the piece approached its conclusion, the 7-year-old played with a sense of joy and accomplishment. The music soared, reaching its peak, and the audience held its collective breath, captivated by the skill and emotion on display. Each note was deliberate, each chord carefully placed to convey the depth of feeling the child wanted to share. It was a performance that inspired, moved, and left a lasting impression on everyone present. Then, as the final note lingered in the air, the room was silent for a moment, as if everyone was holding their breath to savor the last sound. The child's small hands slowly lowered from the keys, and a hush fell over the auditorium. The audience was overwhelmed by the beauty, courage, and talent they had just witnessed. And then, slowly, the applause began, soft at first, then growing louder, until the entire room erupted in cheers and clapping. The 7-year-old looked around, eyes shining with pride and amazement. The performance had been a triumph, a demonstration of courage, dedication, and the power of music to touch hearts. The audience, once skeptical and mocking, had been transformed, inspired by the small performer who had shared their gift with confidence and heart. It was a moment that would be remembered, a story of triumph and inspiration that everyone present would carry with them long after the applause faded. The applause echoed through the auditorium, but the small 7-year-old at the piano remained focused, taking a moment to savor the sound before continuing. Every heartbeat of the child matched the rhythm of the music, steady, calm, and full of purpose. The nervousness that had once gripped them completely faded, replaced by the quiet joy of sharing something they loved with an audience that now watched with respect and admiration. This was more than a performance. It was a connection, a bridge between the child's heart and everyone in the room. The audience was spellbound, leaning forward in their seats, completely absorbed in the unfolding music. Parents smiled proudly, some with tears in their eyes, while teachers nodded in quiet amazement, impressed by the courage and skill of such a young performer. Even the older children, who had once doubted or laughed, were silent, captivated by the depth of talent and emotion pouring from the small figure at the piano. It was clear that the child's performance had transformed the room, creating an experience that everyone would remember. The melody shifted subtly, moving through gentle, tender notes that spoke of innocence and hope. The child's hands moved gracefully, each key struck with intention and feeling. The music seemed to rise naturally from the heart, carrying emotion that words could never express. The audience felt it deeply, as if each note was a personal message, a story told directly to them. The child's courage and dedication were evident in every phrase, inspiring admiration and wonder. A teacher leaned slightly toward a colleague, whispering, "It's amazing how much emotion they're able to convey at this age. Every note tells a story." The other teacher nodded quietly, both completely absorbed. The performance had become more than just music. It was a lesson in courage, patience, and the power of perseverance. The 7-year-old had turned fear into art, and in doing so had touched every heart in the room. Backstage, parents held their breath, eyes fixed on the child as they continued to play. They remembered the long hours of practice, the moments of frustration, and the quiet determination their child had shown. Now, seeing the culmination of that effort, pride and awe filled their hearts. The child had not only mastered a challenging piece, but had also faced the fear of performing in front of a large audience and turned it into an unforgettable experience. The music began to grow more expressive, moving through intricate passages that showcased the child's skill and confidence. Fingers flew over the keys with precision, yet every note was full of feeling. The melody flowed seamlessly, rising and falling like gentle waves, carrying the audience on a journey of emotion and imagination. Every listener could feel the story being told, even without words, and the connection between performer and audience deepened with each passing measure. Some parents whispered softly, marveling at the performance. "I can't believe they're only 7, one said. "They play like someone much older," another replied. Teachers nodded in agreement, recognizing the rare combination of technical ability, emotional expression, and courage on display. The audience was collectively moved, experiencing the performance as a shared moment of beauty and inspiration. It was a testament to the power of dedication and the impact of believing in oneself. The older students, once skeptical and mocking, were now completely silent, their eyes fixed on the child at the piano. The performance had captured their attention, respect, and admiration. They could see the courage it took to stand on stage, the hours of practice, and the heart poured into every note. The child had transformed the room, turning doubt and ridicule into inspiration and awe. It was a lesson they would not forget. The 7-year-old's hands moved fluidly over the keys, creating a melody that was both intricate and expressive. Each note carried intention, each phrase conveyed emotion. The audience felt every subtle shift, every rise and fall of the music, as if the child's heart was speaking directly to them. Parents held their breath, teachers leaned forward, and even the students in the back sat captivated, unable to look away. The performance was a reminder that talent and courage could shine regardless of age. As the piece reached its climax, the music soared, filling the auditorium with a rich, powerful sound. The child's small frame seemed to disappear behind the energy and emotion of the performance. Every chord was precise, every note carefully placed, creating a harmony that was both moving and mesmerizing. The audience was completely absorbed, hanging on to every movement, every sound, every expression of the young performer's heart. The final section approached, and the child played with a sense of triumph and joy. The music was a reflection of the journey from nervousness to confidence, from doubt to accomplishment. The small hands moved with grace and control, striking each key with intention and emotion. The melody reached its peak, filling the room with a sense of completion and satisfaction. The audience felt the full impact of the performance, overwhelmed by the skill, courage, and heart that had brought them to this moment. Then, the final note rang out, clear and resonant, lingering in the air as the audience held their breath. For a moment, silence enveloped the auditorium, allowing everyone to absorb the beauty and power of what they had just witnessed. The small child slowly lowered their hands from the piano, eyes shining with pride, relief, and amazement at the response of the audience. They had faced fear, ridicule, and doubt, and had transformed it all into something extraordinary. Applause erupted, first soft, then growing into a wave of clapping, cheering, and shouting. The audience was on its feet, celebrating the courage, talent, and heart of a 7-year-old who had given their all. Parents wiped away tears, teachers nodded in admiration, and even the older students who had doubted the child were cheering, their skepticism replaced by respect. The small performer had not only played music, they had inspired everyone present, leaving a lasting impression that would be remembered long after the show ended. The child smiled shyly, overwhelmed by the applause but filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had turned fear into courage, doubt into beauty, and nervousness into a performance that touched hearts. The music had become a bridge, connecting them to the audience, and in that moment, the small performer felt the full power of their gift. It was a triumph, a story of determination, passion, and the extraordinary impact one child could have on everyone around them. Parents approached after the performance, embracing their child with pride and joy. Teachers praised the courage and skill on display, acknowledging the remarkable talent that had been revealed. Even the students who had once doubted now offered congratulations, inspired by the display of focus, dedication, and heart. The small 7-year-old had not only performed, they had created a moment of inspiration, a story that would be told and remembered long after the applause faded. The auditorium slowly emptied, but the energy of the performance lingered. People continued to talk about the courage, the skill, and the emotion they had witnessed. The 7-year-old walked off the stage, small hands still trembling slightly, but heart full of pride. They had faced the challenge, shared their gift, and left a lasting mark on everyone present. It was a story of triumph, courage, and the power of music to touch lives, proving that even the youngest and smallest among us can achieve greatness when passion and determination guide them.